We're good to go.
Okay, everybody. Hello, hello, hello. I'm so happy you're all here. I really hope this Zoom allows for more than 100 people because I upgraded it today and I see that we're right at 100. So let's hope that Zoom doesn't fail us again. Like on the last Xmen call, we had 500 people and only 100 could get on. So what else is possible? Smart you for getting in here early if it's not going to allow more. I am really excited to be here. I was thinking today, you know, the topic, the difference that you be, is a great topic for the moment. You know, there's so much that's going on in our world right now, as we all know, like, you know, there's been lots of conversations about all of that. And one of the things that has been so apparent to me is just how, like, there's so much, like the reality of right and wrong and the reality of like vying for the correctness of somebody, like somebody vying for the correctness of their point of view, it's so like insidious in our reality, and it is so woven into the fabric of this reality, and it is absolutely showing us right now that it doesn't work. It no longer works. And you can see this from, you know, the Black Lives Matter stuff and all the like arguing and the politics and the COVID and the mask wearers and the non-mask wearers. And, you know, it's like everybody thinks they're right and everybody else is wrong. And there's no conversation of difference. You know, it's like, if y'all could just be like me, we'd be fine, you know, is sort of the point of view of everybody in the world, you know. And yet, obviously, we've been trying that, you know, for thousands of years, and that is absolutely not what is, you know, it's not a possibility. And so we have to actually jump tracks to something different. And so to me, the Access Consciousness Xmen conversation is really about something. It's about the celebration of the difference that we be, and the acknowledgement that the difference that we be is really where we find the absolute treasure trove of our superpowers. And the, you know, what happens is we have like hidden. Thank you. We've hidden our potency, our brilliance, our difference, and our superpowers underneath the wrongness that we have been perpetrating on ourselves as Xmen, as humanoids. And so it's like your greatest brilliance is buried under a pile of shit called judgment. So everything that is, everything you've done to institute that, will you destroy and then create it all? Right, wrong, good, bad, all night, puck, pud, shirts, boys and mounts. And if you don't actually, if there's anybody here who is not familiar with Access Consciousness Xmen, and Access Consciousness, this is a body of work developed by Gary Douglas and Dane here, that's been around for about 30 years and really is just like amazing, pragmatic, energetic tools that can change anything. And we do use the clearing statement, which I just said, which just is like the delete button on your computer for all of the files that you no longer require and desire. You don't have to know what it is or how it works. It just kind of works because it's energetic. And Xmen is, you know, when I kind of was introduced to the Xmen conversation, it was this, there was a sense of like, I thought, you know, years ago, I thought that it was actually a conversation about kids with ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism. And it is definitely about kids with ADD, ADHD, OCD, and autism. And it is also about the difference that so many of us be as adults, as kids, whatever, however old you may be, and also whether you've been diagnosed or not. You know, for me, I was never diagnosed with anything because I was able to do this reality. I thought I was totally normal, which is hilarious as I look at that now. But Gary Douglas asked me this question: have you acknowledged the difference that you be? And I was like, at that moment, I was like, I'm not different. Like, I'm just sort of like everybody else, you know. But it put this question into my world that I then started to really explore. And if I'm not normal, you're really fucked up, Rich. Yeah. Well, I think we're all really fucked up in the best of ways, you know, in the best of ways. So, and that's actually really what the world requires right now, because normal obviously does not work anymore. It's not a viable reality anymore. And so, you know, we have to start to okay. So like, there's a bunch of directions I want to go in. So when I started to explore this for me, and I started to get my hands on the tools and the conversations of Xmen, I realized, oh my gosh, this totally applies to me. And all of a sudden, this whole universe of the greatness of me became available in terms of how I create my life, how I create my business, how I create my relationships, how I show up as a mom, how I am with money, how I am with my body, everything, how I am with the planet and the world and creation and possibilities. It was like, oh, you know, because part of it was I thought I was like everybody else, but part of it was also that I thought that everybody else was like me. You know, I thought that everybody else kind of functioned like me, which is not at all true. And that's the brilliance of this whole conversation: is nobody's like you. Nobody is like you. Nobody. And that is something to treasure and celebrate and be grateful for and wonder about, because everything that is what allows you to create the world, the reality, and the life that you actually know is possible. Nobody's like you, which means that nobody knows the possibilities that you know. And, you know, we get, you know, sort of tripped up by a lot of humanoids and Xmen. And if you're wondering if you're an Xmen or if you're not an Xmen, don't worry about it. It's not even a defined thing. You know, if we define what an Xmen is, then it's like the antithesis of what Xmen is about, because Xmen are inherently undefined. You know, so if you're like, am I an Xmen? I don't think I'm an Xmen. Let it go. Just pretend like you are, you know, for the purposes of this hour or whatever. You know, just like, let's explore, because it really, to me, it's like, this is about the universe of, like, it's a conversation of a different way of functioning in the world that gives you the awareness of, you know, what you can actually be and create, and, you know, and so you probably have. So has anybody ever been frustrated that you weren't able to create what you really think you should be able to create? Maybe a couple of people on this Zoom, right? It's been like the story of my life, you know. I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake, this shouldn't be so hard, you know. But that's actually because it shouldn't. That's actually true. There's an awareness there. There's an awareness of what's actually possible that doesn't match what you see in the world. Because, you know, when we look at the world around us, we see limitation. You know, we see form, structure, and significance. We see we see concentricity and linearity. We see solidity and impossibility. And as an X-Men, we come into this world like not really knowing how to judge. It's trash day. But I really like being outside when I can. So we come into this world actually not really knowing how to judge, but really being very aware and knowing how to perceive. And so what happens is we perceive all of these things and we sort of like funnel it through how this reality works while not really understanding how this reality works, and then thinking that it's ours and it's us and it's, you know. And so all of a sudden you're like this, it's like you're this glowing diamond that nobody can see, nobody acknowledges. There's nothing like it anywhere in the world. And you're like, hi. Oh, okay. You know, and you shrink, because the other thing about humanoids and X-Men is that our primary kind of orientation is the wrongness of us, you know. So when what you know doesn't match what you see in the world, you go, oh, well, then I must be the one that's wrong. And then we just live that. Like we take that on and we live that. We live that reality over and over and over again. We live that reality. And so everything that is, everything you've done to turn you down so that you can survive in this crazy fucking made up reality called this reality, will you destroy and uncreate all of that? Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, puck, pudge, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And so, you know, one of the biggest things that, one of my favorite thing about the X-Men classes is that it's this like enormous space of allowance. Like people, I get to like see people in a day or 2 days, like just be like, oh, forget all of that judgment that I had of me. You know, like it's such a cool, like exponentialized getting out of judgment kind of class. And I love that about the X-Men classes. It just sort of like burns through all of it. And then you're like, oh, never mind. I'm actually way cooler than I thought I was, you know. There aren't heart emojis here. Oh, thank you, Maria. Makes my inability to judge other people's judgment so very real. As I know what I know, I assume that others also must know, and they don't, right? It's like, wait, what? Huh? You know, exactly. Yeah. And that was, I think I wrote this somewhere sometime recently, where I remember as a kid actually like observing the interactions of people around me so that I could take their cues for how I was supposed to show up and judge. I didn't know at the time that it was about judgment, but I was like, I don't know how you do things around here. You know, like when I got to the planet, I was like, I think I'm missing some things, you know. But what you're missing is the capacity to judge. What you're missing is the capacity to be linear. What you're missing is the capacity to know that, like the capacity to function from time. What you're missing is the capacity to reason, you know, to do logic. Like you're missing human, like the human way of functioning in this reality that is not relevant to you, is not real for you, never has been, never will be. It's just, it's not relevant, it's not real, it's not relevant. Like, let's just let that sink in. This reality is not relevant to you. So everywhere that you have made it relevant, will you please destroy and uncreate all of that? Right, wrong, give out all nine, puck, pod, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Because when you move through the world as the difference that you be, going, oh yeah, no, people are not like me, I'm not like them. And it doesn't mean you're doing separation, because you know what else X-Men don't really know how to do when you're being you? Separate. So it doesn't mean that you're doing separation. It means that you're a fucking aware. You're a fucking aware. New word. You're aware. That's probably kind of hard to translate. So it maybe that's why the law of attraction doesn't work. Rich says, yeah, because that's very human and linear, you know. So but when you get, oh wow, no, I know something that other people don't know, I be something that other people don't be, I get things that other people don't get, this world does not apply to me, yet here's the thing, you can use it to your advantage. You can use it to your advantage to create what you would like to create. And that's one of the places where Xmen really fuck themselves up, because they're like, you know, they're like, never mind, it's okay, I don't need to live in this reality, it's fine, I don't need money, I don't need friends, I don't need people in my life, I don't even really need to have a body, it's okay, you know. So everything that is, you destroy and uncreate it. Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, puck, fudge, shorts, boys, and beyonds. Yeah, so this is, you know, this is and when you start to get like what's really true for you with all of that, and you actually sort of like turn it the other way, where you're like, I'd like to, like Dane says this, you know, I don't want to know, I can't remember exactly how he says it, it's like how I'm going to handle the world, I want to know how the world's going to handle me, you know. And this is what's required right now, because there's so much tit for tat and back and forth and right and wrong, and you're wrong and I'm right, and no, but you're wrong and I'm right, you know, in the world right now. But you know what? We have proven for thousands of years that that doesn't work. It has never really fundamentally changed anything on the planet. Guess why? Because it's not a reality. It's not real and true. It's an invented reality. And the only option there is to take a side, dig your heels in, and cut yourself off, you know. But when you're like, hey, what if there isn't a right and wrong? What if we don't have to live from judgment? What if, hey, you're different, that's cool, so am I, you know. Oh, and so are you, and so are you, and so are you, and so are you. Cool. I wonder what we could create with our differences. I wonder what I could create with my difference if I really allow myself to have it and be it, you know. So, you know, and for me, one of the juiciest parts of the Xmen conversation is about creation, because that's my favorite topic, period, anyway. But it's because you cannot, you like I said, you have these superpowers for creation that you can't, they're not available to you if you are in judgment of yourself. But once you start to like uncover it and open up the treasure trove, you know, it's like, oh wow, all of a sudden you can create all those things that you've known were possible, that you were frustrated that you couldn't create. Now you can, because you have now gotten into allowance of you. You have now gotten into this space where you're like, oh yes, I don't function like the rest of the world does with money, but that's because I'm brilliant with it, not because I'm wrong with it. It's because I'm brilliant with it. It's because I don't make it relevant. It's because I don't make myself beholden to it. It's because I'm willing to play with it. It's because I don't make it significant. It's because I'm willing to fucking go and leap and take risks and soar and play. And if I have it, if I don't have it, doesn't fucking matter. That's more like how an Xmen, those are just some energies that might read for you in regards to the area of money as an Xmen. But if you take that into this reality, it's called irresponsibility. It's called you can't get it right. It's called you don't have a retirement plan and a savings and a blah. And it, you know, you don't keep money around just because you're supposed to in order to be right with it. But for Xmen, we're like, why would I do that when I could create with it? You know? And so you know, so, but then we're like, oh, but I'm, you know, like the financial advisors would tell me how wrong I was, you know. And you can apply that to every area of life. You can apply it to business, you know. Why can't you do business like everybody else? Because it's fucking boring when you do it according to this reality, you know. It's really fucking boring. Why do you have, you know, why are you not able to create what you'd like to create with your body? Well, because you can create something totally different than you've ever seen in this reality with your body if you're willing. You know, why does sex suck a lot of times for Xmen? Because this reality's version of sex does actually suck, like, and not in a good way. It's about judgment. It's about conflict. It's about polarity. What you know as an Xmen is communion and oneness and space and no judgment and possibility. So there's a few things that, you know, so I want to speak a little bit to kind of like, well, I guess I kind of have been, but you know, the way that an Xmen brain functions, and I would say like humanoid Xmen, it's all on the spectrum of, you know, being different, you know, and being sort of a different species from human reality. And truly, like, if you look at it like that, it's not about creating separation or creating wrongness or rightness, but it's like a cow is a cow, a horse is a horse. They're different. They're different species, you know. If you treat a horse the way you would treat a cow, it's not going to work, you know. And so you've got to acknowledge that. So that's where, to me, the value of the human and humanoid conversation is acknowledging, hey, as a humanoid / Xmen, you are more like a horse, you know. Humans function more like cows. Let's just say that, right? So when you're like, I'm a horse, but I'm going to pretend like I'm a cow, you know, that's never going to work, right? So your brain actually functions differently. And yes, I see the question about talking about the ability to not judge. Yes. So the humanoid brain, the Xmen brain, it doesn't have you function from a whole brain capacity. So there isn't like right brain, left brain. There isn't a sense of like logic and linearity. It's like your entire brain is firing at the same time, you know, not here, you know, they talk about the left brain and the right brain, and you've got to cultivate both. But no, humanoids and Xmen, it's all happening at the same time. There's a simultaneity of brain, like the firing of your brain and the way that you function and how your awareness shows up. And you might be aware of things from the future. You might be aware of things from the past. You might be aware of things from other dimensions, other realities, other lifetimes, and it's all sort of occurring at once in the brain of a lot of Xmen. And in the 2-day class that we're I think all the languages right now except for Italian that we're translating, we're doing a Xmen 2-day class. I'm doing one in August 21st and 22nd here in Boulder in my home, and then online all over the world. And there's going to be translation into all of these languages. And if people want it in Italian, we can add that as well. But in that class, we really go into like these different like diagnoses and like conditions that people have, and look at like we turn the stones over and we go, okay, so this is the wrongness in this reality. Let's turn the stone. Oh, this is the brilliance of this. This is the capacity that these people have when they tend to function like this. So we really go into the title of the class is Disabilities or Abilities, right? So is it a disability or is it actually an ability that doesn't fit into contextual reality? So the brain of Xmen work differently. And when you look, with human reality, like when people look from human reality, from the point of view of human reality, it's like, it's seen as wrong because it's seen as sort of like disorganized in a way, you know, the way your brain functions, but it's not, it's brilliant. You know, and like Steve Jobs is a great example of a very dynamic X-Men creator. If you haven't seen the movie Jobs, it's old, but it's a good one to get a glimpse into the world of an X-Men. Or Temple Grandin is another. I love Temple Grandin. And I don't know if those movies are translated or not, but Temple Grandin is an amazing movie about this woman, Temple Grandin, who was an X-Men, is an X-Men. She's autistic, and you get to see like how her world works, you know. And it's like, as soon as you, because the thing is when you judge something, you can no longer receive from it. So this is a big one, and you may have heard that before, you know, but let that sink in as well. When you judge something, you cannot receive from it. So guess what? If you judge you, you will not be able to receive from you. If you judge your quote unquote disabilities, or if you judge like your, like say we're talking about like the capacity that you have with, let's say, money, but you judge it, you will kill it. You will kill. So you'll have to like kill your money flows and your capacity to create money, rather than turn the rock and go, oh shit, man, there's a universe of capacities here, you know, that I didn't realize I've been judging this whole time. Right. So, you know, what human reality has done is create all these diagnoses and just the conversation of wrongness. Cause I never, like I said, I never had a diagnosis. But I just like compressed myself into a box called this reality. And that's what a lot of X-Men do, because X-Men are so brilliant that they can actually, you can see a situation and you get these like energetic downloads, which is part of that whole brain function. You get these huge energetic downloads of universes, like people's universes, people's bodies, you know, interactions that people are having, you know, like just massive energetic downloads. And we think that's wrong, you know, and we try to like filter it out. We try to cut off our awareness. But that's actually part of the greatness of you. If you don't go into it, if you don't make it real, if you don't, you know, you can download all kinds of amazing information and awareness and energies just like that. And it's all energetic, you know. So X-Men function energetically. They don't function linearly. And this is part of that brain function, you know. And so you'll get like sometimes, and this is not like, there's so many nuances to this conversation. So obviously, you know, I'm going to stop trying to deliver a 2-day class in an hour. But, you know, we really go into a lot of the, you know, how, like the nuances of how different brains work. And because it's not like all X-Men brains are the same by any means, you know, in fact, quite the opposite, you know. But just to give you a glimpse of things that might pop for you or light up for you as we're playing here. You know, you like X-Men can just get these huge like swaths of information. Now, what if you could really create with that? You know, what if you're 10 years in the future with what you're creating? Well, if you don't acknowledge that, then it becomes a kind of a problem, you know. Not really, I mean, it's only a problem if you make it a problem. But that's where we get frustrated, and when we're like, I can't get anything to happen or to create, you know. Well, okay, how far in the future are you? How much do you know about the future? How much awareness do you have of the future? And what would it be like if you acknowledged that, and you went and you lowered your barriers and you got out of judgment of whatever was going on, you got into question and you went, oh, I'm aware of a million different futures here. And other people there's probably hardly anybody on the planet that is aware of what I'm aware of. Cool. Is that a blessing? Is it a curse? Well, it's whatever you make it. But when you start to acknowledge it, then you can start to create with it, you know, and go, okay, cool. So what would it take to use this to my advantage? What can I create with the future that I'm aware of? You know, and if you're, you know, one of the only people that has the awareness that you have, please do bring it on. Please bring it on to the world, you know. And it doesn't mean you have to shout it from the rooftops, you know. You might be very quiet. A lot of X-Men don't like to talk. Talking is a lot. I'm like, I like to talk when it's about consciousness. Otherwise, I don't really like to talk. I don't like to make idle chatter with people. That's boring to me. But that part of it is because I know when I get around like a whole group of people that are just like chatting, I'm just perceiving all of everybody's universe, you know. I'm like, oh God, you guys aren't even talking about what's actually going on. I can tell you all what's going on in every single one of your worlds, you know. So it can be, this is why it can be kind of difficult in a way to be in this world as an X-Men, because the world doesn't work like that, you know. But if you're not at the effect of this reality and it's not relevant to you and you actually get to use it to your advantage, then what, you know, what is possible at that point? The thing about judgment, about the, you know, do we have the ability to not judge? Because I mean, if you look at a baby, right, babies don't judge, right? They're just born and they're there and they're vulnerable and they're amazing and they're just such a gift, you know. So what if you are more like that? So right now, and you may or may not be able to do this, and that's fine, but just see right now. Well, just ask right now. You can ask right now to perceive that for you, like how you function more like a baby, a child, or an animal. And we have the little Zara foot. That was so good. One of my favorite X-Men kids. um yeah, so yeah, that, wow, wow, thank you guys. So what would the world be like if we all turned that up? And you know how you turn it up? You just ask. You ask and you relax. And in this space, can you find judgment? I mean, you could work really hard to find it, you know. But what if you could just have the ease of this and the ease of being? Now, as this space, we are very aware. X-Men have the capacity to perceive dynamically, instantaneously. So when you are moving through the world, and even if you're in your house, let me ask you this: how aware are you of everybody else's universe? Like, just naturally. Yeah. So what if you could acknowledge that? And one of the questions that I love as an X-Men is, what am I perceiving Or you could also ask a different question: what am I aware of? And you're not going to be able to put words to it or cognitize it, which is also part of the brilliance of Xmen. You might be able to put words to some of it, but it's not the really it's we ask that question to acknowledge the awareness. I was driving this morning down like the main road in Boulder where I live, and I just got this just I was like, wow, I'm aware of everything. I'm aware of like everybody's universes, all the cars around me, and almost like the cars that have been here before, the cars that'll be here in the future, and then everybody, within the many mile radius, and and then all over the world too. And and Dane did this amazing call series that some of you guys may have been on. It was called Truly Creating Your Life. If you weren't, it was, I highly recommend everything that he and Gary do. I mean, but it was really phenomenal. And one of the calls was about gratitude. And I was listening to it this morning as I was driving, and he was talking about, what if you could really, truly be grateful for everything that you're aware of? Everything that you're aware of, have gratitude for, and when we get that we don't have to do anything with those things that we have gratitude for, those things that we are aware of, because a lot of times what happens is you're aware of stuff and then you're like, oh, now I need to handle this. Part of that is the extreme beyond this reality caring that Xmen have. Extreme beyond this reality caring. That doesn't have a point of view. So when you're aware of all the things, it's like you want to make it better, you want to make it greater, you want to like take people's suffering away, So everything you've put in place to do that, to keep yourself very occupied with your awareness, rather than just acknowledge it and go, oh, okay, and have gratitude for it. We destroy and then create all of that. Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, POC, POD, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And when you acknowledge your awareness and you don't have a point of view about it, which is where interesting point of view as a tool, not just a tool, but like a way of living and being in the world, is so, so very important. But when you just be that space, and you be present with what you're aware of, without a point of view, without the need to do anything or change anything. And you certainly can if you would like to, if it's the energy is there, but it's like you can have gratitude for all of it. And it was so cool today. I was like, wow, it's all kind of like a movie, that's one thing I've been playing with lately, is literally just kind of looking at the world around me like a movie. I've had some phone calls with my parents lately where all they talk about is how scary COVID is. And it's not that fun for me to have those conversations, but I've just been like, okay, I just say to myself, like, I'm watching a movie right now, and that's been really helpful for me. So maybe that'll help you, or maybe not. But just the sense, what happens is, for me, it's like, it's really allowed me to just get to this, like, wow, I can be grateful for everything. Like, really, we can be grateful for everything, you guys, because none of it's wrong. And, in this space here that we all be together, it's like there's an exponentializing effect that Xmen tend to have, period. But then you get together and it's like, and None of it's wrong. And when you allow yourself to relax into that space, it you like your superpowers for the creation of the life you would like to have, the world you would like to live in, they are ready and waiting. They are available. They are humming. Because now all of a sudden you have you, and I always say, like, all of my classes are being you classes. I'm a being you facilitator too. Because if you don't have you don't have fuck all. Really, and that's why our lives don't work. When our lives don't work is when we're not being us, and this and what I love about the X-Men conversation is it opens up this huge, where you're like, oh wow, I didn't even realize that was a thing. I didn't even realize that, like, whole brain function and awareness of the simultaneity of futures and past, present, and future, and spherical awareness, and like non-linearity. Oh, I didn't realize that was even like a thing. And that's actually how I work. So it's this beautiful conversation of like, oh hey, by the way, this might be true for you. And then you're like, oh shit, man, would have been awesome if my mom had told me that when I was 3. And here we are. And now's the time. Now is the time to be the difference that we be. That is the thing that will change the fucking world. It's the only thing that will change the world. It's the only thing that will allow us to live in the world that we know is possible, and to have the reality on planet Earth that we know is possible. It's the only thing. We've tried and tested the right and wrong universe. It's dying. It's basically dead. But everybody's like, wait, hold on. Surely we can revive it, And we're all like, no, that's okay. We don't need to do that. So, so we have a little bit of time for some questions. I also want to just say I mentioned we're doing this 2-day Xmen, Access Xmen Disabilities or Abilities class on the 21st and 22nd of August. If you're in Colorado or you want to come to Colorado, you can come here and be with me. And otherwise you can be online, translated into Spanish, Portuguese, Croatian, Slovenian, and if you're getting translation for Czech or Italian and you want it, let your translator know. And we're also going to be doing the day after. I love this. I actually haven't done this yet, but I love the combination. The day after, we're going to do a 1-day Sex and Bodies class. And we will send you, some of you guys may have been on it, but we did a free call in March on Xmen Sex and Bodies. It's a really fun conversation, really fucking fun conversation, because our bodies are so different and the way that we function with sexual energy is very different. It doesn't have to be about copulation. Like, we can use our sexual energy to heal ourselves and the planet and receive, and it's create, and and there's also some really juicy conversations that we can have about actual sex and copulation, which is another one of my many favorite topics. The X-Men and sex, the reality of what's available with X-Men and sex, actual copulation is it's quite phenomenal. And a lot of people have gotten a lot of freedom from those conversations. So anyway, we will send the recording of that one. That, I think we had it in all these languages as well. So you guys can watch that if you want. But that one day class is happening on the 23rd. So it's the day after. Same setup, Boulder online, you know, translation, all that stuff. And I'm excited about the combo to dive into 2 days of Xmen and then to explore sex and bodies. I'm like, oh yeah, baby. It's gonna be fun. So
can I ask a question?
yes.
I typed it in the chat, but I'd love to hear you speak to it a little bit, maybe more or directly, is how do you reconcile like your awareness and caring for people and like just being caring dynamically while not making other people's choices or realities in regards to your choices relevant?
Yeah. Well, don't look to reconcile because that's a human construct.
Okay.
But
You deal with it. What do you do?
Yeah. Help. I'm aware and I care.
I care. I think I care too much, but then I don't get that it's me by cutting that off either. So like how?
Yes.
How?
Yes. Well, I would say the very first thing, which you'll love, Leah, and probably everybody else too, is being interesting point of view. That tool is, I cannot, like whatever, I emphasize it enough. It's actually who you be as an Xmen when you're being, you actually don't have a point of view. You just know how to perceive other people's points of view and how to take them on and, make yourself the product of them. And, so interesting point of view. They have that point of view. Interesting point of view. I have that point of view. Interesting point of view. I have the point of view about their point of view, etc. And not just from the lip service, because the thing about interesting point of view is that it is a choice more than it is for words. Like it's a choice for an energy of allowance more than it is about saying 4 words. You can say the words and never have it create anything. You have to choose what the tool can gift you. And that's the beauty of the access tools, is they are designed to create an energetic change in your world. It's the energetic change that you have to choose in order for the tool to work. There's not a single tool in access that works without your choice behind it, which is why Gary Douglas always says choice, 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 So there's that. And if you don't have a point of view about what someone is choosing, then what beyond this reality caring could you have access to? So what is caring beyond this reality that you've decided that it isn't, but that you actually know that if you would allow yourself to know, would give you total ease with it? And everything that is, will you destroy and uncreate it? Right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, puck, pod, shorts, with a balance. Because caring is actually not having a point of view about what people are choosing, recognizing that everybody has choice and everybody is choosing what it is that is showing up in their world, which is a real, that's a very controversial sort of perspective to have, because you no longer buy into people's victim realities and victim stories. So and people can't get you to, they can't control you with the position that they take as being a victim. It's like, well, I can't change this, and if you align and agree with that, you're not actually caring, you're aligning and agreeing. That's not caring. So awareness is, oh, okay, cool, this is what this person is choosing. I get that they don't think they're choosing it, and yet I'm going to acknowledge that they're choosing it. Because you know what happens when you acknowledge that you're choosing something, or when you acknowledge to somebody, well, let's look at this with you. Have you guys ever had a change occur in your life because you were willing to get vulnerable with you and acknowledge, oh fuck, I was choosing that, and then you could actually change it? When you realize and you acknowledge that you're choosing the quote unquote limitations of your life, you now can change them. You're acknowledging that you're the one sort of in the driver's seat, you know? So you're empowering yourself by that acknowledgement to change. If you be that with somebody else, you are like being with them in the most empowering way. That is, hey, you chose it, but guess what? Because you chose it, it also means that you can choose something different. What if that's what caring was? What if, I mean, a lot of people want to die. A lot of people hate their bodies. A lot of people, you know, don't want to be on this planet. A lot of people like to suffer. A lot of people like to struggle. A lot of people like to have poverty. A lot of people like to have trauma and drama. Now, as an X-Men, there's somewhere in all of our worlds where we're like, why? You know, like, I don't get that, you know, and yet we all choose it too, to some degree, you know. And to choose totally beyond that is to be so fucking different. And most people are not willing to be that different, you know. But if you're willing to be that different, you're also an invitation for other people to see that as a reality, as a choosable reality. Because how many people in the world even know that they could choose to have a life that's not about trauma and drama? Most people don't think that's even a choice, because they just think, oh, that's how it is, you know. But it is a choice. And when you acknowledge it as a choice for you, and you acknowledge it as a choice for somebody else, and it doesn't mean you have to say a word, but you be the energy of that, there's space there now. It's like, yeah, you can choose whatever you'd like to choose. Now, most people aren't willing to be that potent, you know, but that's not your problem.
Yeah. This is so helpful.
Thank you for the question. It's, yeah, thank you.
And I don't know if, I mean, about the wrongness, like the knee-jerk reaction to going, I guess, interesting point of view. I have been practicing it a little bit.
Yeah, it's sort of like, you know, yeah. So
no,
yeah,
actually, I'm being it a lot more without trying. So I know that I've been working that muscle, like it just without reacting to situations. I'm like, oh, this is totally different than what I've chosen before.
cool.
But
And
yeah,
I would invite you to actually use it, like, because for years I didn't really use the tool, because I was like, well, I have a lot of allowance, so I'm good, you know.
Yeah.
And then I realized that it was the thing, like there were still so many points of view that I had that were keeping me from creating what I was asking to create.
Yeah.
So I really started using it, and I actually started, like, the thing about interesting point of view is that you actually have to use it when you don't fucking want to. Well, you don't have to. You don't have to do anything. But it's it has the most bang for the buck, and you will get the most change out of it when you're like, I want to be in my trauma and drama right now. I want to be in my point of view right now. I want to be right now. I want this person to be wrong right now. And you know what? I'm more committed to being the space of allowance, to being. I'm more committed to consciousness than I am to my stupid ass points of view. So guess what? Right now, I'm going to lower my business, say get present, and I'm going to go, hey, interesting point of view. I have this point of view. I don't really want to do this. Interesting point of view. I have this point of view. Interesting point of view. I have this point of view. Interesting point of view. I have this point of view. Interesting point of view. I have this point of view. Let it melt your world. You know, it's in those moments when you really get a lot of mileage out of that tool, you know, because we're all like, yeah, you know, I'm a lot of allowance, you know, and yes, you are. And, you know, when you think you're like, no, this is an awareness, you know, but it's actually a point of view. And then you use it, and then you change. Holy fuck. Now you have a level of freedom that you've never had before, that most people will never choose. And that requires a level of vulnerability as well. And there's so much more I could say about that, but
thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and just really quickly, and then we're going to end, but Rich says, I always thought I was uncaring when I watched commercials that showed suffering and felt nothing. Yeah, that's the thing, is that ultimately because, you know, there's a whole call about feelings, which I also highly recommend, that Gary Douglas did. And that call was a doozy. You know, it was a really intense call for a lot of people when it was happening, because thoughts, feelings, and emotions are and sex and no sex, which I'm not going to go into that, but are the lower harmonics of being, knowing, perceiving, and receiving. When you function as an Xmen, when you function as the infinite being that you be, you function from being, knowing, perceiving, infinite being, knowing, perceiving, and receiving. When you're thinking, when you're feeling, when you're having emotions, sex and no sex is basically this reality's version of receiving. You're doing the lower harmonic of what you could actually be as an infinite being. So anytime you're going into feelings or emotions, it's not probably real and relevant and true for you. And I know for me, I was always like, I'm evil because I don't really care if somebody dies. You know, like, I'm evil because I'm not crying right now. I'm evil because, you know, and so then I learned how to emote. You know, I became a really good psychotherapist, and I would cry and my clients would cry. And anytime anybody cried, it was like, yay, you know. But ultimately I was like, oh yeah, I actually don't. Caring to me is not about feelings and emotions at all. It's about the acknowledgement of somebody's being, the acknowledgement of possibility, the acknowledgement of the future, and the acknowledgement of choice. That's caring. And a lot of people will say that's not true caring. That's fine. You're going to be judged for that, but that's fine. It's not, I mean, it's fine if it's fine, but whatever, it is what it is, you know? So, okay. Well, I want to keep this to an hour. So, we will get this uploaded ASAP, because I think there's a lot of people that were not able to get on. So all of y'all listening in the future, sorry about that. Yeah, thank you guys so very much for being here. Thank you so much for being you. Thank you, translators, for being fucking amazing. I adore you all. And really, that whole thing about, you know, what if you're not as fucked up as you think you are? Truly, guys, like, and if we can, like, just, I'll leave you with my favorite Xmen tool, which I call flip it. Basically, anytime you're in judgment of you, go, oh, wait a minute, what's the brilliance here? You know, we know, a lot of us know that question, what's right about me I'm not getting? When you're going into judgment of you or something, you know, just turn the stone and go, wait a minute, there's brilliance hiding under this judgment. I'd like to know what it is. Commit to the curiosity of your brilliance rather than the judgment of your difference. And you will flourish in ways that you've maybe only imagined and maybe never imagined. And so will the world. Thank you guys so much. And feel free to share this if you got something out of this. We'll leave it, you know, the link and all that stuff so people can get it afterwards and stuff. So, okay. Thanks, everybody. Mwah! I adore you all. Let's go forth and fuck up the world. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.